Some documented poltergeist activity has been captured on camera, such as objects flying off shelves, doors swinging open or closed, and drawers sliding open or shut by themselves. Most skeptics believe that these cases of objects being manipulated by seemingly unseen forces are hoaxes, which is understandable in some cases. However, what if these unseen forces were able to touch you? What if they were able to shove you or drag you? What if they were able to actually hurt you?
There have been reports of strange creatures in the area.
Witnesses say they couldn't believe what they were seeing.
What is that? Welcome, beloved fofers, doubters, naysayers, non-believers, and skeptics. Welcome to Paranormal Fable or Fact. I am Victor Trevino, joined by my co-host and beautiful wife, Tammy.
We are your humble guides to tales of alleged hoaxes, unbelievable stories, and the overall strange.
Sweet. Now, we gotta mention the email, which is pfableorfact@proton.me. And our Facebook page and YouTube, and on our YouTube channel. Hit the notification bell and subscribe if you like our show. So let's get right into the gist, shall we? Oh, and for the rules, we're going to put them in the show notes so we don't have to say them every show. That way we can get right into the nitty-gritty, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the gist is basically, this show is about the Doris Bither Case, and it's called the Three Tormentors because that's, well, we'll get into that. Basically, in 1974, parapsychologist Barry Taft was in the occult section in a local library with one of his co-workers, Carrie Gaynor. At the time, Taft and Gaynor were working in a now defunct parapsychology lab run by a Dr. Thelma Moss at the University of California in Los Angeles. Doris Bither introduced herself to both men and was relating to them this alarming phenomenon that she was experiencing in her home. Basically, she told them, oh, you guys are in, because they were talking about the occult, because they were in the occult section of the library. She basically walked over there and said, oh, you guys are interested in the occult? Well, you should come to my house. So, with the assistance of Gaynor, Taft conducted a preliminary interview of Doris's paranormal claims. They learned that Doris had a history of physical and psychological abuse, along with a very traumatic childhood. Doris alleged that she was repeatedly attacked and violated by one of these invisible entities, while the two smaller of the entities held her down, and that she and her sons were powerless to stop it. The two investigators and other team members, photographers, and other interested parties visited the home for approximately 10 weeks, and during that time, they witnessed numerous unexplained phenomena, including luminous orbs, transparent human shapes, and incredible poltergeist activity. So,
Wow.
That's what we're going to be talking about.
It's strange that she was in the that part of the library, the occult part. It kind of sounds like she was fishing for them.
I think she was just in the library, and I think the story is she was behind the other shelf. You know how libraries are open, you can see through to the other row?
Okay.
And they were on the other opposite row of her, and I don't know what she was doing in there. I don't know if she was looking for school stuff for her kids or what, but basically she overheard them talking about, oh, well, when we do this and that, you know, because they're paranormal psychologists.
Right.
That's what they were doing. They were doing investigations into the paranormal. So when she heard them, she thought, oh, here's somebody I can ask for help, because apparently it had been going on for a while. these attacks
Oh,
against
okay.
her.
Okay. So
Yeah.
she was in there to help her kids.
I don't know why she was in there. Okay, so let's move on.
Okay.
We have a disclaimer because we're talking about a real person who might have actually been being tormented, as all of her sons have attested, and we'll go into that as we go into the show, by unknown forces for years, possibly. She passed away, so we want to be respectful of the dead. There will also be a discussion on violation and assault of some people and some violence and maybe some scary stuff. And we're gonna try to keep it lighthearted, of course. But while we're doing this, we mean no disrespect, and we're just trying to keep the show lighthearted as possible. So parental guidance is suggested. So let's go into the first red flag, shall we? When they first went to see Doris, she was living in a twice-condemned home with her 3 sons and daughter in Culver City, California. There's evidence that I found later that the daughter might not have actually been living there at that time, but she did have a younger daughter. And the next red flag, her daughter was 6, her youngest son was 10, her oldest son was 13, and her eldest son was 16. I think when I was doing research for this case, that's why I got mixed up when we were doing the Amityville Horror, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember him being 16. I think I was getting them mixed up. So
you were
yeah.
combining the two.
Yeah, because
Gotcha.
there's 3 boys in this one and 2 boys and a girl in the other one, but they were much younger in Amityville. But anyway, moving on. The next red flag, the house was severely unkempt, with holes in the walls and even the floors. Her relationship with her sons, when the investigators got there, this is just the 2 of them, Taft and Gaynor at first, because they didn't even know whether they were going to help her or not, or try to help her or not. Because, she's just a stranger off the street. They didn't know who she was, you know what I mean? Her relationship with her sons was strained and tumultuous, yet all 3 of her sons insisted that they had also seen the entities, and that we're going to go deeper into that in Interrogable Truth number 1. At the time, and this is the next red flag, the investigators noticed that Doris was an absolute mess. Not only in her appearance and her clothing, but her body. She was covered with bruises, and she was just nervous and eyes darting around and shaking, and she was just a mess. And they figured it was possibly due to fear. So, they're taking all this in as they're talking to her, So over the following weeks, the investigators actually spread out around the neighborhood and interviewed people that had contact with Doris and also some of her friends. And all of them actually testified that, yes, we've seen stuff too, which was very interesting to the investigators, I'm sure. And that's when they decided to go full bore, and really start investigating it. And we'll get into those in the Inarguable Truth number 6. But moving on. So the next red flag, while a large group of investigators, apparently up to 30, and I have a question mark behind that, because that's what they're claiming. They said that there may have been up to 30 people in the hallway and crammed in her bedroom when this was happening. Taft and Gaynor asked Doris to provoke the entities, and she started just laying into them, cussing them out, challenging them, and the investigators were shocked to see swirling lights begin to form around the room. These glowing orbs. They witnessed a strange coiling mist that seemed to take the shape of a man's torso, big with a lot of muscle, is how they described it. So like, his chest and shoulders and abdomen of this thing, but there was no head or feet, apparently. But in one of the audio clips I'm going to play, he talks about they actually saw a head, but in the other descriptions from Taft and Gaynor, they just said they saw a torso. So I don't know, maybe he saw a head and they didn't. Who knows? People see different stuff all the time, you know what I mean, baby? Because It's your perception. If you might not be looking at certain things,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Or maybe you're or maybe how much you believe.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Can I ask a question?
Of course you can, baby.
What's coiling mean?
You don't know what coiling means?
No.
Really?
No.
Coiling like a snake, like in a coil.
Oh, coil.
Yeah,
Okay.
coil. It was coiling up from the ground.
Oh, okay.
Do I have it misspelled?
I have no idea. I just said, okay. That's why I asked what it was.
Okay, They also witnessed paranormal activity, so apparently stuff was moving around the room without any explanation. And the green orbs, these light orbs, they were green, that glowed, and they were the size of a man's fist. So maybe a little bigger than a baseball, maybe?
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking.
All right.
One of the investigators allegedly fainted while this was happening. While the mist started coiling up and they started to see it was forming the figure of a person, one of the investigators
just said, "That's enough." Boom.
Yeah.
Man down.
Can't handle it. They're out.
Wow.
The next red flag, the investigators suspected Doris was an alcoholic. And I've seen this all through most of when you look into the descriptions of this case, and I watched several documentaries on it. I don't recall them on the documentaries recounting that she was an alcoholic, or they suspected that she was an alcoholic. It's only in the writings or people that are referencing it. So I don't know if they put it out or if other people just assumed because of stuff they were saying. I'll show you what I mean later on, because it's in one of the unarguable truths. When she was drinking, it seemed to incite the activity. And I don't know if that's because her resistances were lowered or maybe she became more relaxed. I don't know. But it was kind of tied to it. So I think that maybe because they were talking about that, people just assumed, oh, she's a drinker. Because her sons, all of them, and we'll go into that later, all of them said, no, she just had a couple of glasses of wine. Like a lot of people, they just want to relax and after they come home from work or whatever.
Yeah.
And even if she was, baby, it made me ask myself, and I didn't see anything about this either, did she start drinking after these violations began to happen, when she started getting attacked?
Right.
I mean, that seems to me like a pretty good reason to pick up the bottle. You know what I'm saying? If you're that stressed and you're assaulted in front of your sons, baby. Right. She testified that it, and her son said, yes, they could see her being attacked.
Wow.
So you have to assume, I mean, how humiliating is that?
Yeah.
It's humiliating enough, but in front of your sons, and they were powerless to do anything about it, but we'll get into that later.
Okay. Because
one of her sons said he went over there and tried to help her one time, and he got tossed across the room.
Yeah.
So, the next red flag, and this is a quote from Taff. We went to see her at her home with our 16-page questionnaire. Which, when I read that, I was like, 16 pages?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Dude!
Yeah.
That's pretty, I mean, that's like, they don't mess around. They want to make sure that you're haunted. They don't want no fakes up in there, Yeah. But they went over there with their 16-page questionnaire, but she, Doris, refused to share key details. Not even her age. So she was being very secretive, which made them suspicious. And then he goes on, it was clear Doris was very unhappy, and maybe we would not have returned after a second visit when, without warning, a frying pan flew from the cupboard right at us. They immediately, and I have an audio clip of this, of him describing this. Mm-hmm. The team tore the kitchen cabinet literally apart, taking it apart, looking at every piece, because they were suspicious that there was some type of trickery involved. But when they found nothing that could explain what happened, that's when they said, okay, something's going on here. Yeah. You know what I mean?
She's for real. She's not being honest about the attacks.
Exactly. Well, I mean, what other evidence do you need?
Right.
A frying pan isn't something that's easily tossed. And that was enough for them. They said, okay, that's when they helped her 16-page, questionnaire or not, whether she wants to tell us her age or not, we want to see more of this because something's going on. Right. It was evidence.
Right. That's when they ripped it up and threw it away.
Yeah. So Taft and Gaynor returned to revisit the home and experienced unexplained cold spots / breezes. So they'd be walking. Now remember, she's destitute. She's living in a condemned home. There was no air conditioning. It was hot outside. There was absolutely no explanation for them to all of a sudden be standing there and feel a cold breeze hit them, Yeah. Or be standing there or walking around the room and all of a sudden they're in this cold spot all of a sudden. And then they step out of it back into a warm room, step back, and they feel that cold spot again. They're like, what's going on here? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's odd. And inexplicable strong odors. Reportedly, the odors were so powerful at times that several investigators became overwhelmed and actually had to go outside and get some fresh air and, toss their cookies because it was so vile, and they described it as rotting flesh.
Oh, wow.
Dick Thompson, one of the professional photographers there at the time, described the orbs as angry, and here's where I want to play one of the first audio clips.
The lights came in, it was like, it almost come in like in a state of anger. It almost came in, all right, here I am, this is me. And it came in, it kind of did a little thing in the group, and then it was gone. The part that interested me the most was the fact that what we saw, we were able to get on film.
Okay, now, what's interesting about that is that's a photographer, baby. He's not part of the team. He was invited there to try to collect evidence. You know what I mean? He didn't work for the university.
Right.
He was just an outside professional photographer, and that was his testimony on documentary, and he's come out on other stuff and talked about it as well. And that just goes along with some, I believe we have in Arguable Truth Number 6, which is there was third-party witnesses to what was going on, which I always think is extremely important. I can scream up and down, oh, I've got a ghost in my house, got a ghost in my house. If investigators or skeptics go to my neighbors and say, hey, you visit him all the time, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, he's a really good friend of ours. Have you ever seen anything in his house that you couldn't explain? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we saw the toilet flush by itself. We saw a light snapping up, on and off by itself, etc., etc. That's compelling evidence because it shows, hey, maybe I'm not off my rocker. Maybe I'm not lying. Right. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Third-party witnesses to me are extremely important, and that's why I wanted to play that audio clip. Moving on. And this is another quote from Taft. We arrived with scientific instruments, and we're going to go into that in a little bit here. We're going to start listing them. Cameras and such, trying to collect evidence that this was real. But it was elusive. Things rarely happened when you were waiting for them. After 50 years, I can only say one thing. This was the real deal. It shook me then and now, and I think about it a lot. And this was an interview Taft gave in 2024. So that very recently, baby, he's elderly now.
Yeah, just last year.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, that's crazy.
They brought in a Geiger counter. When we talked about the scientific equipment, they actually brought in a Geiger counter, which showed 0 readings whatsoever while there was activity. So while stuff was happening, the Geiger counter showed no reaction whatsoever. But after the activity died away, it started detecting normal background radiation.
Wow.
And they were perplexed because they figured it would be opposite, that it would spike when the activity was happening, and then go back to normal. No, but it's like it absorbed the radiation or something.
Oh, that's crazy.
So it was like the opposite of what they expected. It's weird, huh?
Wow.
So moving on to the next red flag, they actually brought in a Hewitt-Packard odor meter to, detect odors.
Yeah.
To try to locate the source of these horrible smells, and they could not find it. Every time they got a reading, it seemed to be moving around the house. You know what I mean? Because they thought maybe something, because she was in a dilapidated home. So maybe, a rat died underneath the floorboards or something. It wasn't anything like that because they could not find a centralized source. And the scent kept moving around the house, which I think is fascinating. And I never even heard that. That was in my own cursory research that I found that out. But anyway, moving on to the next red flag. Also in 2024, Gaynor, who's now a hypnotherapist, appeared on a Netflix talk show, John Mulaney Presents Everybody's in L.A., and he was talking about these encounters. So again, this is recent. He revealed that when he was in Bither's oldest son's room, and the kid put on the British rock band Black Sabbath, he put on a record and was playing it, he watched the teenagers' baseball cards fly all over the room. So like they cascaded all over the room, like something, you know what I mean? Like something threw them up. So it's like they were reacting to the music, and we'll go into that more in Arguable Truth Number 2. I thought that was just fascinating that
they liked Black Sabbath?
Or that it angered them? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, how do you judge that reaction? It throws up some cards. Is it saying, yeah, buddy? Or is it going, hey, shut that crap off? You know what I mean? I don't know. But Gaynor, in that same interview, he stated that he started to feel that it was Doris Bither who was the source of the energy, not the house, since the paranormal activity allegedly followed her once she moved out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, wow.
who knows? And, we'll get into that when we get into the conclusions and stuff, how I feel about that, because, well, let's just move on. Next red flag, she moved to San Bernardino from Culver City, LA, She moved to San Bernardino and only kept in touch with a few people. Taft regretted this because he in his mind, she was just running away from her problems instead of facing them. He wanted to continue with the investigation. And Doris was apparently still being assaulted by these entities, even though she moved. And then shortly after that, she apparently moved to Texas.
Wow.
So she was still being plagued by these things, and she just, I don't know why she didn't want to be investigating them. I don't know. Maybe she thought they weren't helping, so she just, they were using her like a guinea pig. They were, collecting evidence, but they really couldn't help her. So maybe that's why she ran away. I don't know. So years later, Taft and Gaynor were on set as advisors when the movie The Entity was being filmed. Taft was invited to an early screening at Fox Studios of the movie The Entity in 1983. There he saw Doris for the first time in years. She seemed grateful that they were telling her story, but would not divulge any information about her current status, because apparently he was asking her, so how you doing? Anything else happened? And she just didn't, very secretive, private person, I guess. I don't know. Wouldn't tell anything to him, so he didn't get any information out of her, and she just left, and that was the last time he ever saw her.
Wow.
So moving on to the next red flag, Brian, the middle son, later claimed that Doris was abandoned by her family for being rebellious. He contradicted himself several times during that interview, but he seemed very emotional about the ordeal, and he wanted to set the record straight about his mother, and he vehemently denied that she was a drunk, which was what we talked about earlier. All of her sons said, no, she doesn't get drunk. Yeah. She just has a couple glasses of wine, and, just to relax or whatever. She wasn't over there swigging down bottles of whiskey and passing out. You know what I mean? Or staggering around the house, In that interview, he also claimed to see the entities, and we'll go further into that in Inarguable Truth number 4. So the next red flag, the other two sons also hinted that there was some level of paranormal activity following her mother before they had moved into the home in Culver City. So again, here might be evidence that it had nothing to do with the house, that it was her, and it followed her there, because I guess they had seen a couple little things before moving into that place. But they both backed their mother, claiming that they had also seen the entities, one of them claiming that they had been awakened in the middle of the night by being slapped in the face by an unseen force. The other claimed to be kind of hurrying down the hall, and they ran into somebody so hard that it actually knocked them off their feet, and they fell down, and they're looking, and there's nothing there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then we get that story again about I think it was the oldest boy, the 16-year-old. He's watching his mother get attacked. He went over there and tried to help her, and he got thrown across the room. So
that's so scary that they could physically touch you and physically harm you.
That's really scary. Now we're going to talk about the tulpa again, because this is, again, possible explanation for paranormal poltergeist activity. We know it's Tibetan mysticism, but I looked into it a little deeper. Most believe tulpas cannot be summoned accidentally. It takes these practitioners of this stuff, of the mysticism in Tibet, it takes them years and sometimes hours of intense concentration and, what's the word I'm looking for?
Like meditation?
Meditation, there you go. Sometimes it takes some hours of meditation to form the energy, to summon the energy to activate these tulpas. So they're like, no, you can't just do it accidentally, but some fringe practitioners of this stuff and people that have been studying this stuff within a more modern community, they actually suggested the possibility of unintentional creations through intense, reoccurring thoughts or daydreams. So basically, if we talked about, the teenage girls being stressed because they're going through puberty, they're going through that phase of becoming women, and their bodies are developing and all this kind of stuff, and they become very self-conscious. They go through their womanhood, the period of where they're, doing all that. Everything's changing. Yeah. And it's possible that the stress they're so worried about it and they're so focused on it
Right.
that they accidentally summon these things. And that's the explanation.
Is a tulpa always evil?
I don't know if I'd say evil, but I think they're more like a lashing out.
Oh, okay.
Maybe things that a 11 or 12-year-old girl that's going through this can't physically do. They have their thoughts unleash these tulpas to do the stuff that they would normally want to do because they're so frustrated.
Okay.
And that's why it's throwing things and breaking
Right,
things and
right.
scaring people and stuff like this. That's one of the explanations of
Right.
why. But so...
Throwing tantrums that they can't do in real life.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right.
And the argument is especially if the person's not aware of the concept of tulpas. You know what I mean? They're just forming these thoughts and it happens. So again, if you're going to argue you can't summon these things accidentally, there's this thought process that maybe there's different types. You know what I mean? Because just because you can summon it with your mental focus or whatever doesn't mean that it couldn't accidentally be done. And I tend to agree with that because people do stuff absent-mindedly all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the next red flag, and this is going back to what we just talked about, could we be talking about some other type of tulpa or perhaps a poltergeist to explain that paranormal activity around Doris? I think it's possible,
Yeah.
It could be from her, or it could have been something that she summoned, or something that was haunting her or trying to possess her. Who knows?
Right.
But is it the paranormal? I don't know. We'll let's move on and find out.
Okay.
Because I have to be honest with you, baby. When I first, and this is probably 75% of all the shows we've done so far, I'd say at least 75%, I initially started going into my cursory research skeptically. I didn't think they were real. I thought they were hoaxes.
Oh, okay.
One of the biggest ones that I thought was a hoax was the Enfield poltergeist. Because everything you read, oh yeah, that was fake. Oh, there was nothing there. So it's not until I start really looking into it and start really watching the documentaries, going to the web pages, watching YouTube channels that from other people's research that they did, and listening to podcasts that are talking about it, and you start learning all this information. It's like, well, wait a minute. If it is a hoax, that's not real easy to hoax.
Yeah.
And again, once you start talking about third-party witnesses, it's hard enough to get two people to lie and form their lie to make it to where it sounds true.
Yeah.
When you start talking about people and that's really close, like you and I, baby, like husband and wife, or
Right.
boyfriend and girlfriend, or lovers, whatever,
Yeah.
or brother, siblings,
Right.
or parents, people that are very close to each other. It's hard enough to do that.
Right.
When you have neighbors or acquaintances or friends from work, stuff like that, people that don't know you real well,
Yeah.
you get them to stick their necks on the line and start talking about some hoax, it's very difficult, baby.
Yeah.
This idea that, oh, well, people do it just for the money or the attention. Not necessarily. And put yourself in their shoes. If your friend came out of the blue and said, hey, you know what, man? We want to do a hoax on YouTube. We want to pretend that there's a ghost, and I need you there to act like you're seeing it. I want you to scream and act like you're seeing something when there's really nothing there. How many of us would go, sure, I'll do that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I'd be like, no, dude, I don't really want to put my face online connected to a prank, dude.
Yeah.
That's just not me.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just my own thoughts there. But
Right.
that's just how I feel about it. Now that I went off on a huge tangent,
Yes.
let's get back on to the next red flag. Doris apparently passed away in 1999. She was only 59 years old. Don't know the details about it. Again, she was very secretive. She didn't keep in contact with anybody from, the public that was... I don't even know if her sons were in close contact with her. I don't know.
Wow.
So, otherwise we'd have more details, you know what I
Right.
mean? So I think she just... Maybe they became estranged from her? I don't know.
Maybe.
Again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but it just seems odd that there's no detail, heart attack, she died in her sleep, you know what I mean? Or she got some weird disease or pneumonia, it's just, and we're not even sure of the year. That's just what was being told, and we're not even sure that the 59 years of age is accurate. That's just by what they got from her sons, I guess. So it's real minimal details, and it just makes me think that maybe she was estranged from them.
Yeah.
Which is sad.
That is sad.
So we're at our favorite part, baby.
Okay.
The inarguable truths.
Okay.
Inarguable truth number 1.
The children saw one of the entities so often, they actually named it.
Inarguable truth number 2.
Since Doris was never assaulted during their investigation, Taft didn't believe she was being violated.
Inarguable truth number 3.
The photograph of the arc of light over Doris sitting on the bed is not easily explained.
Inarguable truth number 4.
The entities seemed to only manifest when Doris had been drinking.
Inarguable truth number 5.
The entities seem to be aware of their surroundings.
Inarguable truth number 6.
It could be argued that Doris was suffering from mental illness except for third-party witnesses.
Okay, so let's go back to inarguable truth number 1. It's pretty good, huh? Those
Yeah.
inarguable truths. Which is the children saw one of the entities so often that they actually named it. They had a nickname for it called Mr. Who's-Its, or Mr. Who's-It. Now
Who's it?
that was so fascinating to me, baby. When I read that, I was like, what? They saw it so often that they gave it a name?
Isn't it bad to do that?
I don't know,
Like
but
it's giving it ownership to like be there or something?
I don't know.
That's
I don't know. Maybe, but it had to already be there for them to name it.
Yeah.
So it was already active before, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But naming something could point to something that was either commonly encountered or something that the children attributed to their mother's emotional problems. Because remember, she
Oh yeah.
she had a really traumatic childhood, and maybe when this stuff started happening, they just nicknamed it because that's just how their mom was.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, to be arbitrary, not automatically, oh, it's something paranormal. It's just weird, you know? It's just
Yeah.
it's so weird.
It is.
So I just thought that was fascinating that they actually named it. So when they said, yeah, we saw activity too, I mean, they're not playing around. They actually named it. Well, I think we covered that one enough.
Yeah.
So let's move on to argument truth number 2. Since Doris was never assaulted during their investigation, Taft didn't believe she was being violated. He also seemed to lean, as did Gaynor, as we talked about earlier in the red flags, that she was somehow causing the phenomenon, which again leads to that idea of the tulpa or some kind of energy that she was releasing because of stress.
Yeah. She was inviting it in.
Or she created it with her
Yeah.
own energy because she was mentally distressed. She
Right.
was, emotional, whatever, or she might have had some kind of mental illness. We don't know.
Yeah.
Her children, I mean, they did have a very strained and tumultuous relationship with their mother. But who knows why? What it was over. I don't think they really got into that.
No.
Might have been just because they were so poor. She was a single mom. She was struggling, whatever, who knows. But either by being psychic or disturbed, Doris was somehow releasing this energy. Long years of abuse made her suffer from PTSD. That was the opinion of some of the investigators, that she had some kind of PTSD from it. You know?
That makes sense because you kind of said that she had some of the stuff that you're talking about says that she was having these issues before she moved into that house.
Mm-hmm.
So it was before that house. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she probably did kind of contribute to the energy.
Possibly.
Yeah.
It's possible because that's what's two of the sons alleged, that they had seen activity before they moved to that Culver City home. So
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, who knows?
Yeah, who knows? It's just up in the air, but and at first, and this is a very important point here. This is probably one of the red flags that would have been the mic drop. But when I first started doing my cursory research into this case, because I knew what it was.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of physical assaults, when it came to the paranormal.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what is this? How could this be happening? How are people taking this serious? Until I started to do my research. Then I realized, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute here. I was doing research on another show, and I ran into what's called a succubus. Well, we know what succubus are, baby, and we know what incubus are, right? They're these female and male versions of demons that apparently visit people in their sleep or at night and engage in this activity of a sexual nature, either while they're sleeping or while they're awake. Going back to what we were talking about during the Pied Piper show, baby, remember I was telling you that they have to tempt you. You have to accept it.
Right.
They can't just do things to you without your permission.
Right.
So apparently when these succubus and incubus, we could probably even do a show on this, it starts off with like light touches and caresses while you're sleeping. Some people attribute it to wet dreams. You know what I mean? Because that's the stimulation. You wake up and you're like, oh, all excited.
So they're tempting you.
They're tempting you while you're sleeping, and you're aroused by it.
And then you accept it, and then they go in.
You want more, you want more, you want more. And after it gets to the point to where you're like, they're kind of edging you, basically, is the new terminology for this kind of behavior, is edging. So they get you to a point to where you're just like basically begging for it. And that's what gives them the power over you. So then they can just show up
and that's when they get permission from you because you're begging for it.
And this is a possible explanation what happened to Doris because she's single.
Oh, okay.
She's still a healthy woman.
Yeah.
She still needs release. With 3 boys, how much dating could she actually do? Right. You know, how much privacy did she have? So possibly maybe these night visitations made it more...
Yeah.
It was, happening to her, and she accepted it, and that's what gave this thing power.
Yeah.
To run around her home and start doing all this crazy stuff. Who knows? Yeah. Or it could be the Tulpa thing. Who knows? But I just wanted to talk about that because I thought that was fascinating. Yeah. So anyway, moving on. In argument truth number 3. The photograph of the arc of light over Doris sitting on the bed is not so easily explained. And I actually have an audio clip I'm going to play of the author that wrote the book, The Entity, that later became a movie.
All the instruments started clicking away, so I knew everyone was seeing this at the same time that I was. They were ducking, and everyone was saying, oh my God, look at that, oh my God. And then Doris started screaming. That was the woman who was being belabored by this creature. Started screaming, I don't want to see your lights, show us yourself. Damn you, show us yourself. She started cursing and swearing at it. And there, lo and behold, at that point, it started to appear. It sort of developed a kind of, a kind of arm was articulated. You could see sort of like an arm, and then a neck. And then of all things, a kind of bald head. Now, this could have been our imagination, but collectively, we saw the same thing, every one of us. We saw the same thing.
First of all, our buddies over at Skeptics R Us, some guy was over there, I guess he's been a photographer for a while, and he's like, well, it's just a hair. And he has a example photograph of this hair floating in the air. And yes, the hair is catching the light, but you could tell it's a hair. You know what I'm saying? It still had structure to it. It wasn't just this arc of light. So I'm like...
he's trying to debunk it by just taking a picture of a hair.
Right. He's saying it's just a hair. And it was just caught at the perfect angle, and that's why it looks like that arc. Okay, but again, the hair would have structure. And how you're talking about how close to the lens it was, what kind of frame speed they were taking the photos at, or shutter speed, all that stuff.
What year was this again?
This was like in 74 or 75. I think it was 74.
I don't think you can, well, maybe I'm wrong because I'm not a professional, but can you really mimic something that happened in 1974 from now?
I don't know enough about photography, but I'm just going by what I'm researching and what I can see with my own eyes. The example he gave, it fell short. Okay. You know, this recreation, it fell short. I was just like, that doesn't look anything like what was seen in the photograph. But also, the arc was smoothing through the air. It didn't follow the contours of the room, which means it wasn't somebody there with a light source or, you know, a car light shining into the windows, because it would have followed the contours of the wall behind her. Oh. And it doesn't. It's basically floating in the air, this thing that they captured. And here's the other thing, baby, and this is my own cursory research. That wasn't even the entire photo. The photo we see now, the photo that I'm probably going to post on the YouTube channel, isn't the full photo. It's a much bigger photo. That's a zoomed-in version, where you just see her on the bed and the arc of light over her. It's much wider. You can see the entire room. There's people standing there. and there's a second arc of light
Oh, wow.
to the left of the big one. So there's a small one, then a big one. So and the only reason I'm bringing this up is because if you're going to be from Skeptics R Us, our wizards of smart, if you're going to argue that it's a hair, are you honestly going to try to sell the idea that there's two hairs perfectly next to each other in the same exact moment that he took that picture?
Yeah.
What are the odds of that, baby? They're astronomical.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, and then here comes the mic drop on this.
Okay.
The negative of that photo, the negative, was authenticated by the magazine Popular Photography. And it still, from what I understand, it still makes it the only alleged photo of the paranormal or a ghost activity ever published in that magazine.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, mic drop.
explain that there, Mr. Photographer over at Skeptics R Us. If they looked at the negative and they're like, oh, this isn't, we can't explain this.
Yeah.
This isn't a hoax. This hasn't been tampered with.
Right.
And who knows how many photographers work for Popular Photography? Who knows how many looked at it?
Right.
I mean, I could see them passing around the office. Hey, man, take a look at this. Look at this photo. You know what I mean?
The magazine says photography in the title.
Exactly. So who knows how many
photographers?
Right, and who knows how many they showed it to
Right.
to where they became convinced. All right, we're going to publish this.
Yeah, yeah.
How do you explain that?
Yeah, they were confident with it.
If it's just a hair, because
Yeah.
you know the chat rooms, baby. I was watching. Some guy just said it was a hair. Nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah,
They don't know what they're talking about.
yeah.
But again, you have to do in-depth research to find this stuff out.
Right.
I think we covered that one enough. Moving on. In argument truth number 4, the entities seemed to only manifest when Doris had been drinking. And again, I talked about this earlier, where that's what the investigators claimed. So they actually told her, hey, why don't you, we brought a bottle of wine for you. Why don't you have a couple glasses?
Yeah,
Type deal.
right.
So I think that might have been where the rumor started that she was drinking all the time. And that's why there's claims that she was like an alcoholic or something. But
Right.
I don't think she was. Because her sons insist, no, she was not a drunk. I mean, if anybody's going to know, it's going to be her sons.
So these assaults probably didn't happen all the time. If like she was just like not having alcohol. I mean, you just don't drink alcohol unless she was drinking every day. I mean, every day, yeah, that's kind of extreme. But
I think it was just a way to trigger it,
oh, okay.
to start it. You know what I
Okay,
mean? And that's why
okay.
they had her drink. But
Gotcha.
they got to a point to it. And I think this is probably one of the reasons she left. And I'm not bashing Taff or Gaynor on this, but
Yeah.
they were using her as a guinea pig.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And I think
she
that's-
didn't want to do that anymore.
I think that's why she was being so secretive, and that's why she...
I don't think. I mean, I don't. I think she was very naive on some of this stuff.
Maybe. I don't know.
Like maybe naive is not the word, but like it seemed like she would ask people in to help her, and like with the entities too. It's like she would ask for help, but wouldn't get the help that she was needed. Does that make sense?
Right. She felt that they weren't helping her.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want to bash the investigators, but they seemed more interested in the activity than they were her.
Right.
At times.
Right.
And maybe I'm just being...
Right. She was just a test dummy.
Maybe I'm being unfair. But okay, here's an example. A piece of wood that they had used because they covered the windows up.
Uh-huh.
They blackened the windows because when they saw the orbs, they wanted to make sure that it wasn't reflection, that it wasn't some kind of a light anomaly or anything like that. And they saw that the orbs, these fist-sized green orbs, were actually illuminating the dark rooms.
Oh, wow.
They could actually see the light traveling through
And
the
they
room.
were always green?
They were always green, from what I understand.
Wow.
But one of the boards that they used to hold the tarp in place on the windowsill, I
Yeah.
guess it was just sitting there on the bottom, holding
Yeah.
the tarp against the window, or the cardboard or whatever they had propped up against the window to darken the room.
Right.
That board came flying off and almost hit Doris.
Oh, wow.
And I don't remember if it was Taft or Gaynor. I think it was Gaynor. He said, hey, I dare you to do that again. And it threw another board at her.
Yeah.
I'm sure she wasn't very happy about that.
No.
And again, that's just...
Because they were antagonizing it.
But that's what I mean. Like, they were... But, I don't want to bash the guy. I think maybe we're being unfair, but maybe that's the impression she got, is why I wanted to bring that up. That they weren't really helping her. They were more interested in the activity than they were her. Now, as far as some of the explanations were concerned. Later, there was postulations of, were the three entities physically manifestations of her three sons who were controlling her life and possibly oppressing her freedom. At first I was like, oh, that's a bashing. That's, evidence of debunking. But when you really think about it, baby, especially if we're talking, going back to the inarguable truth right before this, about her being tempted by this thing, and that's why she gave it power.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we're talking about a succubus, or well, in this case, it would be an incubus, the male version of these demons.
Right.
What if that's what it was? It was tormenting her with that. Because again, she had 3 kids. She was a single mom. I even said, how much of a dating life could she have?
Right.
How much privacy could she have?
Yeah.
So that's not so far-fetched. I don't know if I go along with that. And we'll have to discuss that more in the conclusions. But at first I was just like dismissive of it, but really thought about it later. I was like, well, wait a minute. There might be something to that. You know what I mean? And we've already talked about this several times, but her sons disputed her being a drunk, which is odd. There had to be some kind of miscommunication there.
Yeah.
Either that or the investigators, because like I said, I didn't see it in my cursory research of Taft or Gaynor coming right out and saying, oh, she was a full-blown alcoholic.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that. I saw some stuff where they were talking about her drinking and them egging her on to maybe drink a little bit to, try to trigger some activity, but I didn't find anything with them outright saying that she was an alcoholic. Maybe they did. I don't know. I don't know, baby. It's a weird aspect of the story.
Yeah.
But I think it's because their relationship was strained. Doris and her relationship between the investigators, because, they had suspicion she was keeping stuff from them because she was so secretive. She didn't want to tell them, remember, she didn't want to fill out the questionnaire. She didn't want to give them all the personal information. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she was already kind of standoffish. So maybe that's why they were suspicious of her. I don't know. But it just seemed like a very strained relationship when you consider that they were there supposedly trying to help her. You know what I mean? It was just a very weird setup.
Yeah.
But so maybe they did think she was an alcoholic. I don't know. Because when you hear them talk, and you're going to hear Taft, we're going to play a video, audio clip of him in a little bit. I got the impression when you hear the whole entire interview, because I could only put in a small portion of it.
Right.
When you hear the entire interview, you get the idea that he was very skeptical. There was aspects to it that he saw with his own eyes that he was still doubting. You know what I mean? That he wasn't all in.
Right.
I don't, people that are like, oh, they were just trying to get attention. I don't believe that at all. He was very skeptical, baby, because he had been doing it for years.
Right.
And he got to the point, I don't even know how many times investigators will go somewhere and it's nothing.
Yeah.
Or they don't find any evidence, or the person's just trying to get attention or just wants somebody to talk to, or there's a logical explanation why this door opens. If you step right here, it moves the floor and the door swings open. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or if you move this cabinet here, that cabinet door will swing open by itself because the wood moves or whatever. It turns out to be nothing. You're consistently shot down as paranormal investigators. That's why I don't understand why skeptics try to say that, oh, they just believe everything and we need to make sure that they're doing it right. No, they are doing it right.
Yeah.
Because any paranormal investigator you talk to, baby, how many times they've struck out.
Right.
How many times they go there and there's nothing.
Yeah.
So, and you get that idea when you hear Taft talking, and when we play the audio tape, I just want you to keep that in mind.
Okay.
But again, I asked the question, could it be that she started drinking more heavily after she started getting attacked by this thing?
Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's move on. I think we covered that one enough.
Yeah.
Inarguable truth number 5. The entities seem to be aware of their surroundings. We talked about when that kid played the Black Sabbath and it reacted.
Right.
There's also EVP sessions. And Taft talked about this. I should have got that audio clip, but I didn't. But they're all sitting there. There's like 8 or 9 investigators in this room. They have an open mic. And they can hear on the playback, not live, on the playback, they heard this deep breathing. And then footsteps are approaching the microphone. They're all sitting there. They don't hear nothing. They're all sitting quietly.
Right.
And then something clicked the tape recorder off. And that's what made them go, wait, what's going on here,
Yeah.
And that's when they listened to the playback and they realized it sounded like something was walking up to the tape recorder and turned it off so that it wouldn't record it. Which is, that's odd, baby.
Yeah.
When it threw the board at Doris, we talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, I put it in here that Taft asked it to do it again, and it did. So maybe, I guess it was Taft. I couldn't remember at the time, but I guess it was Taft. So it responded to his voice. He said, hey, do that again, and it did it. That shows a consciousness, an awareness, which is just odd. But remember, Doris was also there. So if we're talking about her energy, if we're still on the, going to make the tulpa argument, it's possible that her own control over this thing, she had it do it again.
Right.
Who knows? I don't know.
Right.
But it's just weird that it was reacting to them.
Yeah.
That shows like an intelligence,
Yeah. Spooky.
Yeah, very spooky. But I would love to know if Doris was there when they captured that heavy breathing in the footsteps.
Yeah.
I don't know if she was there or not. So that's basically the inarguable truth. Is I just thought it was very important to point out the fact that this thing, whatever these things were reacting out to certain stimuli in our reality. You know what I mean? They were reacting to the investigators.
Yeah.
They were reacting to things the investigators were doing.
Right.
Which is just nuts when you think about it, baby.
Interesting.
And I don't know if that supports the idea of the tulpa or goes against it. I don't know, because I don't know how they work. So I don't think anybody does really. But we're on the finish line, baby.
Yes.
We can see it.
We're on the last one, right?
Inarguable truth number 6. It could be argued that Doris was suffering from mental illness except for the third-party witnesses. This is the mic drop.
Yeah.
And here's what we're going to play Taft's recording, because he makes a really good statement. He says something along the lines of hallucinations aren't, shared.
Yeah.
If it's her, if she's suffering from a mental illness, then how am I seeing it?
Right.
But I'll go ahead and play that right now. Hold on.
We were in the kitchen talking with her about more of her experiences, alleged experiences, and a lower cupboard door flew open, and a frying pan, a skillet, flew out and took a ballistic arc across the kitchen and landed on the floor. And of course, we checked looking for springs and wires or people, and there weren't any. You have to make sure that something you have documents objectively, physically, what you're experiencing. Well, our photographs in some respects did that. Plus, there were up to 25 or more people seeing the same thing at the same time. Hallucinations are not collective. So what was the cause of that event? We don't know. This stuff is so hard to pin down. It's so hard to actually observe with your own eyes and to be able to record beyond that point. You could live 10 lifetimes and never run into this. So it's extremely fortunate that I was in the right place at the right time to witness this with a group of people. Because, if it's just you and your friend, it's the fish that got away. There's 3 Mount Everests in my case file. This is one of them. And this would probably be the highest peak.
You see what I'm saying? He's very well spoken.
Yes.
Doesn't sound like a kook. He was very aware of what was going on. He was very aware of how rare it was. So again, it gets, you might get that idea that maybe they cared more about the activity than they did her because she was so standoffish.
Right.
I don't know. We shouldn't.
He sounds like he's still skeptical of what he saw. Like he doesn't believe what he saw.
Of his own eyes.
Yeah, of his own eyes. Like he's like.
That's crazy, huh?
Yeah, that is crazy.
And that's what I mean. He doesn't sound like the type that's just all in. He's still very.
He doesn't sound like he is all in.
Careful.
Right.
And he feels fortunate that he was able to witness this stuff, But not just him, not just his testimony, not just his argument. Not only did the sons relay this story, but so did Doris. A few weeks after she moved into that house in Culver City, Doris was visited by a very elderly Mexican woman. The woman claimed she used to live on that property years and years and years ago when it was just a farm, when she was a little girl apparently. She told Doris to leave immediately, get out, because there was something very evil there. She told her that it was haunted and that Doris shouldn't stay there. Doris was confused and asked the woman what she was talking about. The elderly woman just went silent and just walked away. Doris or her sons never saw the woman again. So again, third party witness to, hey, something's there. Who does that, baby? Who just knocks on a stranger's door?
Yeah.
And goes, oh, by the way, you're living in a haunted house. I know because I used to live here when I was a little girl.
Yeah.
Years and years and years ago when there was just a farm here. Who does that? You know what I mean?
Were they even, was the woman even real though? You know what I mean?
Again, yeah. What if she was
in reality?
What if that was a apparition?
Yeah,
Who knows? But I just, that is evidence that it wasn't just in her mind. Because that's the easy argument. You look at, you know how I love the chat rooms. Yeah. That's what most people say. She was just nuts. She was just crazy. All that demon talk. That's nonsense. She was just a drunk and mentally ill, and they took advantage of her and all this other crap. But when you actually look at the third-party witnesses, baby, that's extremely hard to just broom away.
Yeah.
Again, if you don't want to believe, then you're not going to believe no matter what
right.
the evidence is. But I think it's compelling.
Yeah.
That there were third-party witnesses, even a lady, before Doris was apparently even experiencing anything in that house yet. Here comes this lady out of the blue saying, hey, get out of there.
Yeah.
Something's wrong.
Right.
Up to 9 professional photographers visited the home, sometimes all at once. Frank De Felitta, who is the author I was talking about, he's the one that wrote the book, The Entity, and that's the one that we played the audio clip on when he was talking about, seeing the orbs and seeing this.
Yeah.
He witnessed the activity firsthand. We heard it from his own lips.
Yeah.
We heard the audio clip that I played at the beginning of the show from Dick Thompson, who was one of these professional photographers, from his own mouth, his own lips. We saw stuff. Stuff was happening. You heard from Taft.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to just say she was crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Her eldest son is another witness.
Yeah.
Her sons, they were 10, what was it, 10, 14, and 16?
Yeah, 10, 13, and 16, I believe.
Yeah, those aren't small children.
No.
A 16-year-old's going to remember all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And this is the eldest son we're talking about, 16 at the time. He witnessed his mother being thrown around her bedroom. And at one point, he intervened and was tossed across the room.
Yeah, he was assaulted too.
Yeah, so it's difficult to explain the activity as mental illness or delusion when other people are witnessing it. And that's what Taft said, it's not collective.
Yeah.
Hallucinations aren't collective. You're not all going to see the same hallucination if you are indeed in a hallucinating type state.
Right.
Not all of you are going to see the same thing.
Right.
So how do you explain that?
Yeah.
But also, remember we talked about how they talked to friends and family of her and neighbors, and they all said that they saw stuff.
Right.
So what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
We can't just dismiss this as mental illness or some type of emotional problems that she had or mental problems that she had.
It probably led to mental illness.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It probably led to it.
But that about does it, baby.
Yeah.
In conclusion, baby, what do you think about the Three Tormentors?
Well, at first, when you first started this at the beginning, I thought that it was just bogus. But then when you started talking about this witness, and then you said the room was full of 30 people and stuff, that's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people
to be involved with. So yeah, it's definitely. And then you said the woman that came, the elderly woman that came and said that was a farm and that it was haunted. That property probably has a lot of bad evilness going on it. And who knows, and here's the thing. Poor Doris, Miss Doris, it sounds like she had a very hard and sad life. And I think that unintentionally, she probably invited them in or did it before she moved into that house, and it got bigger and bigger. Does that make sense? She ended up in a more evil area, and she probably already had this evilness surrounding her.
I see what you're saying. Kind of like the Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
Where the 6 people were murdered in that house, and here comes George Lutz with his dabbling.
Yeah, it dabbled.
And stirred it up.
Yeah, stirred it up.
That is entirely possible. I never thought of that. That she showed up with minor stuff going on.
Right.
And then she gets into this hot spot where this elderly lady says, hey, there's something evil here. She isn't aware of it, and she starts doing her thing, or it starts affecting her. She's already disturbed or whatever. She already has activity going on. And it just blows it right out of the water.
And I'm very suspicious of her because she doesn't want to share anything. She's very private, and it's okay to be private. But Miss Doris, you have something, and you brought it. It blew up more when you came to this property.
Exactly, and to be private to people that you're asking for help. Remember, she approached them.
Yeah. Exactly.
She approached them and said, hey, help me. Something's going on in my house. If you want to see paranormal activity, come to my house.
Yeah.
They went there with the intentions. I'm sure they were probably like, well, let's just see what she has to say.
Right. Right.
And they were very skeptical at the beginning because she wasn't sharing anything with them. So that's what I mean. Their relationship was, I think it was very strained right off the bat, baby. But then when that flying pan comes flying, they're like, oh, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
What's going on, you know?
The whole story is strange because, like you said, she invites them, but then she shuts them down.
But what do you think it was? Do you think it was...
Demons.
You think it was demons?
Yeah.
You think it was like an incubus?
Yeah, it's demons.
I think I agree with you. Especially now that you pointed out that there might have been something already there. And then it starts tempting her.
Yeah.
It could have been one of these incubus things that was in the area. And it bothered that girl, that elderly lady, when she was a little girl.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible, baby.
Oh, there you go. Just gotta talk about demons every show. Everything's a demon. Everything's a devil.
Anyway, I'm just saying, it's possible. Because, again, she was a single mom. She's a healthy woman. Women need release, just like men do. They'll deny it all, blue in the face. Oh, no. That's all men think about. Women don't think about that stuff. Okay, whatever. Women need it too. They need love too. They need affection too. If she was being harassed by this thing at night and she was tempted by it and gave it permission and it started taking advantage. And then it had the permission, so it started abusing her and hurting her. You know what I mean? And started doing it in front of her kids, humiliating her. Yeah. And that's when she went for help. Basically, what I'm saying is it might have grown out of her controls. At first, she was controlling it, but then it just became more emboldened as it gained more power, scaring her kids, scaring her. And, you know, that's what I think happened. I think it was something...
Poor Miss Doris. Rest in peace, Miss Doris.
Yeah. If she actually went through that, that's terrible, you know. But again, there's people that would say, well, she brought it on herself. She asked it, you know. But I don't think anybody deserves that, though, baby.
No.
And she should have went to the church and tried to get like some kind of exorcism or something, you know.
Oh, see, there you go again. Gotta talk about Jesus and God.
Whatever. She should have.
Yeah.
She should have got some kind of spiritual help instead of going to paranormal investigators.
She probably wasn't a believer.
Or maybe, maybe she didn't believe. But when something's attacking you like that, how can you not believe?
I don't know.
That would make the most staunch atheist a believer right off the bat, let me tell you.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Man, if something invisible is actually physically assaulting you, baby, sexually assaulting you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you can only tell yourself, well, I must have dreamed that.
Yeah.
You know, and then you start seeing all these bruises and marks and scratches and bites and stuff, and you're like, well, wait a minute here, what's going on? That's an awful vivid dream, you know? You could only deny it for so long is what I'm saying.
Right.
And then when your kids are witnessing it as well. So even if you're telling yourself, no, this can't be happening, and your kids are your son's over there trying to help you, and he gets tossed, how do you deny that to yourself?
Yeah.
You know? That's why I say I think even the most staunch non-believer is going to be immediately affected by something like this.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might have been why she was ashamed.
Exactly.
That might have been why she was so secretive.
Yeah.
She knew deep down that she was the cause.
Right.
You know, that she brought it on herself. You know?
Yeah. All right.
That about does it, baby.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you very much for listening, everybody. We hope you enjoy the show. We hope you enjoy our other shows. If you do, go on YouTube, subscribe, like us, share the podcast, share the shows. If you know somebody else that is into all this stuff, word of mouth. That's all I got. You got anything?
No, just if you have any ideas for future shows, we've already gotten a couple of suggestions, and they are in the works. But if you have any other ideas of stuff you want to hear about, let us know in the comments.
Yep.
And good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.